Hello Magic players, welcome you to another special episode of the Brewers Tavern deck review. This time we start with Charles' deck review first. Charles, good to have you here, and good to have also our two guests here.
Yeah, good to be here for everyone. This is our review special, episodes 26 to 50. In part one, we're going to go through the 25 decks that I played, and then in part two, we're going to go through the 25 decks that Misha played. And we have two very special guests to join us to help us. Dave Firth Barr. We also have Thomas, who we're so happy to be here to help us as well. He also has a great YouTube channel everybody might want to check out as well. But thank you both so much for being here.
Yeah.
Good to be with you again.
Of course. All right. So without further ado, we'll start with episode 26. Just to remind everybody, Brewers Tavern, we play a deck once. We don't repeat it. Our goal is to try to get every reasonably conceivable Swedish deck on stream. Some of these won't repeat from our first specials. Some of the decks will be spicy. Some will be kind of stock archetypes, but if we haven't had it so far, we're going to make sure that we get them. So some will have more to say than others. And I'm excited to start with 26, and I think let's get started.
Exactly. So we will directly start with the first deck picture, which is from episode number 26. Yeah, we have 2 minutes per deck. We're not rushing. If we take more, it takes more. So here we are. This is the first list from Charles. Here we go.
Okay, we probably have three or 4 minutes to be okay. That'd still make the 2 hours. But okay, so the first list is Mirror Litch. It's really cool when it works. It's very fragile, but the archetype has to appear in an episode at least once. The basic idea is you want to get Litch out, Dark Heart of the Woods, and Fast Bond. And the idea is you tap whatever dual land, hopefully, it will be a forest dual. You'll add a mana of one of the two. You'll sack it to the Dark Heart. You gain 3 life. With Litch, that means you draw 3 cards instead. You can continue to play lands as it take damage for Fast Bond. You could just sack a permanent or tap the Mox to add the mana. And you could basically draw through your whole deck. And the idea is to play Mirror and then Time Walk. And since your opponent doesn't have a Litch, you just win. And the mana shorts to basically tap your opponent out. So it's really cool to see. It's very hard to make it work. But when it does, it's magic, at least the first time. So it's really happy to get this in episode 26.
Just one thing, when I do my arm movement, the screens are a little bit different like last time, so probably I will point at someone, which is actually a little bit confusing. But yeah, deck looks awesome. Guys, what do you think about the deck? Like it is.
Yeah, the Litch Darkheart combo has been a thing for a while. You started seeing Eureka more and more on these lists over the last couple of years, I feel like. I think I lost a match to Litch and Darkheart against Elliot Davidoff at the Huvudturneringen the day after NoobCon back in 2018, and was impressed when it all finally comes together. I mean, with Eureka here and something like only 9 black sources or something, you're basically giving up entirely on the idea of ever hard casting Litch. Really relying on Eureka to bring it in, which is fine. I love to see any deck that can make use of mana short anywhere in the the combo space. Of course, the idea with mana short is that you're going to fire it off in your opponent's upkeep to knock the lights out, so that on the ensuing turn it protects your combo, and they'll be tapped out, which is tremendous. And I mean, I think one of the most powerful cards, or most powerful effects in this deck, unfortunately, there's only one of them, is Time Walk. That's one that you really also want to hammer, but it also makes the combo like a 5 or 6 card combo at that point to have everything line up. But very sweet brew. Love it when it comes together. What do you think, Thomas?
Well, I think mana short kind of functions like an extra time walk, right, in this deck. Is that what you're hoping for, Charles? Or
yeah, I mean, the thing is, if Litch goes to the graveyard, you just lose. So it's very delicate. So you really want to protect against disenchant. So one of the ways is to mana short first before you play it. And then, of course, you do have flash counters, which could also, if you don't have a mana short, that can also deal with that. And Dave's right. Basically, there's two ways to build this deck. Because black is very difficult to cast. Almost nothing in the format is 4 of the same drop. So you're either playing Dark Rituals, that version, or you're playing the Eureka version. And I thought the Eureka probably was better because you do still need to get Mirror Universe out. And that's 6 casting costs. So sometimes if you can get the Eureka, you can get 2 of your combo pieces out instead of just 1. But you're right. If it doesn't happen, you're going to have a hard time casting the Lich. It's going to be a very late game because I think I have 9 black sources plus the Lotus for 10. It's definitely wouldn't be easy. But that's why the mana shorts are there and the flash counters. It's just to protect the Lich. That's basically it.
And did you think about that card from Legends, that 1 green that protects your stuff?
Oh, Void Fate. Yeah, I think it's one of those two. So what's better than is it the Avoid Fate or Flash Counter? It's so
Flash Counter is a bit more versatile than Avoid Fate. It's a question of colors also, I suppose. I don't know, Charles, did you think about the difference between those two?
Yeah, I sure did. I think reasonable minds could disagree and think that you have a ton of green, way more than blue, and maybe one of those 3 should be a Void Fate. So I could totally see that. I thought I had enough blue to go with this, but it's a really good point, and maybe some of them should be a Void Fate. So I think but these are basically the options that you have. Are you going to go the Eureka? You're going to go the Ritual? You want a Void Face or Flash Counters? I think mana short, at least 1 is necessary. But it's a fun deck to see it work, and anybody who wants to see it work. I think I got it to work exactly once in the episode, so I was happy about that. Unless anyone has anything else.
When you just play a Time Vault in such a list, if you're not playing the mana shot, you play a Time Vault. You give your opponent the extra turn because you don't care, and then you just go off with tapping the mana vault.
It's tough. It's tough to do that because you don't really have defense, so you're going to get beat up by creatures until you can get this combo off. So when you make it happen, it's usually just. But it's a little bit tough. But this is the Mirror Lich. If there's nothing else, I'd say we go to episode 27.
I have 2 other comments.
Okay.
One is I think that this is the kind of list where you could slide over towards more of a traditional mirror ball. Like you could at least give yourself Channel and Fireball somewhere in the main, and give yourself a chance at pulling that off. Not very many opportunities to do that in old school. So when you possibly can, I think it's fun to try. You might have to give up some of your like flash counters or something like that to do that. And then the other thought is that you could also transform with the sideboard into more of a like an Underworld Dreams combo deck, right? You want to throw like Howling Minds and Underworld Dreams into the board, then you can just switch the permanents that you're getting in.
I actually think that's a good idea because
it'd be funny anyway.
This is a really hard deck to sideboard because you have so many combo pieces and you kind of need all of them. So what do you take out? The last thing you want in a combo deck
is with the sideboard is to like start worrying about like 1-for-1ing your opponent. You just kind of want to ignore what your opponent is doing and enact your own evil plan. And that's just another funny thing to be able to do with the mana base and some of the other pieces.
So with this said, let's move on to deck number 27. Here we go.
Okay, so this is Edwin the Magic Engineer's Swedish version of the EC deck that he finished second in Las Vegas, and I can't remember, I think it's 2018. This might be my favorite Arabian aggro build, and I really like it for this reason. You typically have city in a bottle problems when you play too many Arabian cards, and this deck kind of doesn't really care about bottle, believe it or not. You have between the 4 Scavenger Folk and the 3 discs, you can really be aggressive. And oftentimes when I play this, I find my opponent has some creature removal, but not necessarily that much of it. And they'll often go for a Scavenger Folk or a Curdate and that will free the board for a Suchi, which of course is an Arabian, or a Dib, or an Ernie, and it works really well. And the disc I really like. It could clear a bottle, but clearing the board and then being able to play another mana-efficient Arabian creature can do really well. And you do have some of your own burn for removal, and you have all the restricted lists. So this list really plays really, really nicely. And I'd really encourage anybody who wants to try Arabian aggro to consider this specific list, because it doesn't feel as big a sitting in a bottle issue.
Yeah. So this time we start with you, Timmy. I called you by the real name. So what do you think?
Sure, man. No worries. Timmy is fine. I got a Timmy here at the back, so it's so good, man.
I didn't switch your patch now onto the jacket, but I'm working on it. Okay, my wife will do that, but anyways. Sorry.
Cool, man. Yeah, I think it looks very aggressive. Of course, the first thing you think about is how are you going to deal with the city in a bottle. I think maybe you could consider adding artifact blasts instead of the scavenger folk. But I do get it, with scavenger folk you can also attack. Yeah, that's something that came up. And there are 2 Suchis. Would you consider maybe Berserk to deal some extra damage for those? I don't know. It looks like a solid deck. Yeah.
I like that Scavenger Folk is it's bait for a creature removal.
Okay.
Which I like. Well, that's the idea anyway, I think.
It's kind of strange that the list only has like
4
burn spells.
It's a pile of strong magic cards.
Of course.
I do think the bottle exposure is a little high. I mean, there's at least
7, 8. Oh, sorry.
Features 3 cities.
1 second.
So I don't know. I am also. There's a little bit of a push-pull. I mean, in Swedish, like having Suchis around is good. They're a nice creature to have at the top of the curve. In Swedish, they don't do mana burn. But there's a bit of a, I don't know. It's interesting to look. I'm just thinking about the 3 discs here. Like they feature very heavily in the deck. They can pull you back into a game. I'm just wondering how often, like without a lot of native that are disenchant targets, how often the disc is gonna just get killed on sight when you need it in a big spot to bring you back into a game. And then the other thing that I'm looking at here is the mana base, the color requirements. Noticing that we're down to just 2 Mishra's Factory, just given the sheer number of different pips that you need to fit in, is including all of the forests. I think you have 7, 8 forests for the ape, so that it keeps you from having a mana base that's maybe as smooth as you would want, just to make sure that you can always turn on that the +1/+2. Oh, there's a basic forest in there too.
Yeah,
and the trops are also clipped across the columns.
Okay, yeah, so there are 4 drops, not 3.
Yeah. You have to.
I stopped taking pictures like that. So.
Yeah, please stop doing this.
These are way in the past, but pictures don't do that anymore for me now.
But I think that.
I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, very strong cards will win a lot of games.
Yeah, 100%.
Can you all see Micha? Is he still there?
Yeah, I can still see you.
Oh, what happened to Micha?
And if he's recording, we might have lost all of that, right?
No. You're there. I hear you. I see you. All is good. Wait a second.
We'll edit this out.
What happened to Micha here?
I'm back. Am I back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But did you?
I got everything recorded. I saw you all the time. I heard you all the time. Everything was perfect and crystal clear. You're still there. There's just Dave missing, but I guess
right? You don't see him, Timmy, do you?
Sorry?
You don't see Micha, do you?
I do see Micha, yeah.
You do?
And I see also an empty chair, and I see you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Same with me, and I saw you guys all the time, and I heard you all the time. Just one thing which I recognized was that he's playing one counter spell instead of the
Sorry
one
about
of
this, everyone. Technical problems.
But you're not seeing him, Charles? Oh. Charles is gone. He's back. He's coming back.
Yeah.
I can see.
I can see all of you and hear you all crystal clear all the time.
We're still recording, right?
Yeah, we're still recording.
Okay. Do we have anything left on episode 27 list?
I just said that it is a little weird that he plays the one-off counterspell on the sideboard instead of one-off mana drain, since he runs the sushi, so he doesn't care about mana burn. But this is the last thing.
Well, the mana drain is in the main. Under a break.
Mana drain's in the main.
Good. We are all good. That's what I said. Mana drain is in the main. That's why he's not playing in the sideboard.
There's maybe one comment that I have that's land destruction. You know, this Mace of If is an issue for these decks. So that's something maybe to put in the sideboard to add some land destruction.
Yeah, that would be great. That would really be great.
And I think what's interesting, sorry to interrupt, is that now that I'm looking at the list, he's really going heavy on creatures, where you see a lot of aggro strategies. Of course, you've got a lot of creatures, and then you kind of, at the right moment, you invest in one creature, right? Yeah. With like a Grove and a Berserk, and he's not doing that. So that's quite interesting to see. He's going more wide, I guess.
Yeah.
That way. Yeah.
That's actually right. So with that said, on to number 28. Here we are.
Okay, so 28 is nothing spicy or anything. This is just the solid Randy Bueller style Land's Edge deck. And I think this is pretty much as what Land's Edge could be in its top form. I'm not sure how many changes I would want to make to this. It's a lot of fun for me to play. I know a lot of people don't like to play against this list, but I definitely wanted to win a game by chucking lands at Micha, and I was able to do that. So I think this is just a really solid version of the Randy Bueller style deck. Not sure what comments both of you have, but...
Yeah, the first thing I noticed, I never realized that there's only one Land's Edge in the deck. But obviously you're only going to play it when you have enough lands in hand to kill him on the spot.
Yeah, it's a late game. It's definitely a late game card. So I'm not sure you want a second copy.
Yeah.
I mean, the deck looks super solid, and to be fair, it looks a little bit like the deck plus Land's Edge for me. Oh, Dave is gone. Dave is back.
Dave is coming back. There he is.
Okay. There we are.
Yeah.
We will see each other.
I don't know what's wrong with Discord this evening. It's a little weird.
Sorry about that, everyone. So I think one Land's Edge is probably right. I don't think you want to have more than one. It's your last late game play. So I think it's probably right to have just one.
Yeah.
But it is your only win con, right? So
yeah.
I mean, you do have Recall and Twister, so you could get it back if somehow you don't get it.
And Regrowth and Tutor. You'll find it.
And Regrowth and Tutor.
I mean,
and Sylvan, yeah.
And to hear, I mean, and when Bueller played it, he pointed out that that you really only play the Land's Edge at the bitter end. You don't let them, you don't let your opponent get activations off of it. You load up your hand and you only fire it off when you can on the turn that you expect to win. And that's something, that way you're not trotting it out there to get killed somehow, and you're not letting them, stock up on lands themselves to maybe, kind of enter into a war on the stack, throwing lands at each other. I mean, I think the list looks pretty solid. The Crypt is a standout to me in the sideboard. Might even want more than one. I don't know, Charles, did you get a chance to see Crypt in action? Either
not in this match. Not in this match, but
if you're
I just played so much. I played more against Danny Friedman than anybody else in the school.
If you're playing against Liquidal Vault or the deck, or God forbid in the mirror, you really want those crypts.
It's such a good card. I mean, when it's good, it's really, really good, and it's like it has an effect like no other card. So I kind of sometimes like sneaking one on the sideboard.
Timmy.
Really cool.
Yes.
I'm back. I'm here. I hear you.
What?
Yeah.
What happened?
No, I'm just asking if you have something more to say about the list, and if not, we can just move on.
No, it's just interesting to see one land's edge, but I understand why. And I guess the 4 ivory towers are really important, right? To cushion your life. So that's always great with the Sylvan.
Thinning out your deck and then gaining life almost negates the creature. So it can get really out of control for your opponent. And you have Library of Lang, so that's another card where you can end up gaining almost infinite life every turn after turn. So
actually, the Library of Lang also protects you from a possible discard spell, so you can keep that land's edge. You can put it back on the top of your library.
Yeah,
so that's nice.
Also, you can have you can assemble as many lands as you wish with the land tax. I don't know if someone said that already. I was counting the lands. I was just curious how many lands basics you need to play to throw into the lands edge, and it's 18. So 18 lands in total, which is kind of okay, I guess. I mean, you stop playing lands at 4 and then just see what happens, or you also spread out to 7 or 8 mana? Because I do not see a super huge X spell here. No Brain Geyser, right?
No, that's definitely not what you want. Yeah. The top of your curve is Abyss for 4.
Yeah. Looks super solid.
Or get him. Okay, I think we go to episode 29.
Yeah, and here we are.
Oh, A+.
So this is going to be one where I'm not going to try to spend...
Shut it all down. So
I'm not going to spend 30 seconds trying to describe this deck, because the designer of this deck just happens to be one of our guests today. So I would like Dave to first grade the deck, and then second of all, tell us in 30 seconds, what are we trying to do here, and why did you make these selections? Because this was one of the decks in Brewers that it might have close to the record of new cards that have not appeared in any other episode before. So we love that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this? And great build, by the way.
Yeah, I take that as a compliment. I mean, this is one of the best things I've ever done, really, if I'm being honest. I had been chasing this black-green Enchantress space for a million years. Many iterations, going back to, I want to say like 2015, 2016, like right when I got into old school. I wanted to build something like this. I just didn't know how to do it. And so it really kind of combines like the distress, like Enchantress with the distress archetype, as well as like Underworld Dreams combo. And because it leans very heavily on mana dorks and the Enchantresses themselves, which are small, basically useless creatures, it gives itself another way of winning in Fallen Angel there at the top. But everything is really geared around having a critical mass of cheap enchantments to fire off, neutralize whatever your opponent's doing, and then start drawing a bunch of cards, or fire off a draw 7 with Underworld Dreams on the board, or attack for 13 with a Fallen Angel.
Man, I love the weakness. To be honest, I love the weakness. I love
it's so much better than Paralyzed.
You're not seeing a lot, but the weakness is amazing.
Yeah, you would think, because it's so tempting to maybe go more towards land removal, and then you would choose for Paralyze. So it's quite interesting what you did, go for weakness.
Paralyze is a tempo play for an aggressive deck. Weakness is a much better control enchantment in this role. And think about the things that weakness can do, right? I mean, weakness is a turn 1 answer to Ritual Hypnotic Spectre, right? They fire down a hippie, you can put weakness on it.
It's an 0-1, yeah.
Yeah, it's an 0-1, can't damage you, can't take cards. You put weakness on a Serendib Efreet. It's a 1/3 that pings its opponent, or pings your opponent every turn as well.
That's true.
In addition to just picking off random utility creatures entirely, I was really, really impressed by the card. And then Blight, it's an interesting one. Again, it's an enchantment, so it's like the enchantment version of Sinkhole, basically. But the thing about Blight, it's really, really important in this build. And there's actually a fifth one in the evil presence there at the bottom row. And that is because Mishra's Factory poses such a challenge to this deck. Because you're only using enchantments, by definition, you don't have any instant speed ways of dealing with Factory. It's never a creature or an artifact on your turn. So you do need enchantment ways of dealing with that card. Otherwise, you just lose to a Factory. You have no other way of handling it. So that's what's going on there.
And just about the sideboard.
Yeah. So the sideboard is I mean, first and foremost, the crumbles and the Phyrexian, the Gate to Phyrexia are exclusively to bring it against Nevinyrral's Disc. Disc is a deck that just ruins this this plan's day because everything here is predicated on just having a zillion permanents in play. And then the Demonic Torments and the Oubliettes are just ways of mixing and matching to just match your answers to their creature threats appropriately. There's different reasons for including each. Like, for example, Demonic Torment is you want to put a card like that on a Serendib or a Juzamjin or something, right? Because then the creature can't attack, but it's still paying its owner every turn. Whereas if you Oubliette a Dib, you lose that benefit of the damage. And likewise, if you Demonic Torment something with like an ability, it doesn't actually do anything. The creature can still use the ability like think Preacher or Royal Assassin or something like that. So you want to be able to kind of like adapt your mix of creature answers to what they're actually playing. And then the Warp artifacts and Haunting Winds are great to just ramp up if you're playing against creatureless decks, you're playing against control, you can really ramp up the distress damage. Not only do you have an Underworld Dreams in play, but maybe you've put a Warp artifact on their Mox or their Soul Ring. Maybe they're relying on a bunch of artifact mana. You can put the Haunting Wind and tax them really, really heavily with with more resilient. They become more resilient threats than creatures because enchantments are so hard to deal with in the format. There's not a lot of effects that deal with enchantments.
Oh, sorry, down here. Yeah, you wanted to say something, Thomas?
Yeah, what I find really interesting is the way that Dave has thought this through. Is that my first initial instinct would be I want to protect the Enchantress because I'm building an Enchantress deck. So maybe you want to share something about that, Dave?
Yeah. So I don't think you really care about protecting the Enchantress, frankly. And you'll notice that all of the creatures in the deck died to Lightning Bolt. So if turn one you play a bird or something or an elf, the opponent is going to want to bolt the bird. And having those dorks in there, they almost serve as a bit of a lightning rod to make it a little bit safer for when the Enchantress does come down. The other thing is that the difference between this deck and I guess maybe like a pure or like blue-based Enchantress deck is that your entire plan is not predicated on the Enchantress sticking. It's a nice to have. Like if you have an Enchantress in play and you're drawing extra cards for one-for-one-ing your opponent, that's great. But if it's not there, you're still doing competitive things. Like your enchantments all impact the board or damage your opponent on their own. There's not enchantments that don't really do anything. You'll notice I'm not playing like Sylvan Library. Like I get a lot of people who ask, like, why aren't you playing Sylvan Library in a green-black Enchantress deck? I'm like, well, because it doesn't block, it doesn't neutralize a threat, it doesn't do anything. I'll see my cards eventually. I'm not interested in combo pieces. I'm interested in impacting the board. And so because all these, the weakness stands on its own. Blight does what it's supposed to do on its own.
So is this one of those in Enchantress decks that wins without Enchantress?
It doesn't need Enchantress to go off. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So
Well, really nice deck. The thing is, Dave has two. I've tried two of the 25 decks that we're going to review, are Dave's list. And I don't even know which one is my favorite between the two of them. So the next one's really, really, really cool.
I hope you
we'll talk about later.
okay,
So with that, great deck, A+. Let's go to episode 30.
rated A+. Dave 5th.
Beautiful deck.
Okay, so here we are with list number 30.
All right, so this is Olaf's deck, and the basic idea is he basically wanted to try to have 12 trikes, and he's trying to do this with 4 trikes and then 4 copy artifacts and then 4 animate deads. So trying to push that as hard as possible, including mana vaults to get them out quickly, and then sages to be able to either sack a spent trike or a mana vault that you used to play a trike, and then to be able to draw a card and keep it going that way. This list is a lot of fun, and I love animate deads in a non-reanimator type space. So I really enjoyed this. It was a good competitive match we have.
Yeah, someone
What do you
want
guys
to
think?
say a little bit more about the list? I mean, in my opinion, it is just a straightforward, super good artifact shell. Maybe it looks a little weird that there's no workshop in it, but maybe the mana base is a little bit fragile for it, and he just felt 4 mana was.
I asked Olaf. I don't think he wanted a Lotus, 4 vaults, and then another workshop. He wanted, blue mana or the factory. So I don't think he thought it was needed.
Your color budget's way too high. You have way too many blue and black spells to have a. I mean, it's just
And you
one.
only have
Actually, the double
4
blue,
trikes.
I guess.
Yeah, it's just one workshop. I don't know, like how much you'll even see it, and it's not. If you're not cranking out a trike with it on turn 2, you're going to be pretty unhappy with it overall. It's just going to sit there.
Yeah.
There's one card which I do not like, and I think it's a little outdated in the momentary old school meta game. It's the Tetravus. I think it's super slow, and my Tetravus always dies to Divine Offering. Always, like whenever I played it, it always split second fall apart, like in the air, poof, destroyed. Yeah, like
I think the idea is if you're going to have 4 copies and you have 4 sages, it's not terrible to have a couple of them. But
the day that you do split the Tetravus into the babies and you sacrifice a baby to the sage, you'll be pretty happy.
but
that's
it never
beautiful.
worked that way. Never ever. That never happened to me.
I guess, Mitcha, when you've got so many sages, you probably have a sage on board. So when you play out Tetravus and they try to Divine Offering, right, at least you get a card out of it.
Yeah, that's
That's
fair.
And
That's
they,
fair.
they don't gain the life.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, fair. That's true. Yep. Shall we move on to
I like the
list?
steel.
Yeah.
I like the steel artifact in the sideboard. That's a really
The steel
That's
artifacts are
really
cute, especially with Sage, right? You steal their artifact, sack it,
Draw a
that's
card.
pretty funny.
draw a card. Yeah. There is one card that I want to see in here, which is Recall. I think there's a line early on where, say, turn 1, you have you have a land in play or whatever, land in a mox. You have an early thing to do, like a disenchant or ancestral or I don't know, demonic tutor or something, or just play your sage. And say that they bolt your sage or something like that. On the next turn, for 3 mana, you can recall back your spell that you already cast. Like get your disenchant back as removal for next time, or something like that. And you can use the other half of recall, which is discard a card, right? You can put a Triskelion you can get a Triskelion in the graveyard on turn 2 or 3.
It's a good point.
Yeah,
I like that.
And then have it to start, animating or whatever. It's just another sneaky way of getting a trike in a little bit sooner.
and I think
like
you
that.
can easily replace the transmute artifact for the recall, as you said, because the transmute
Yeah.
is nice to have, and on paper sometimes you sack a Triskelion to get another Triskelion into play, but you have the sages anyways.
Pretty cool.
You crack them. You know what I mean? Like as you said, you discard them to recall, get it back with animate that. Even if you disenchant your animate that, you get with recall to animate that back. Stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, with transmute, I think I'd want a few more kind of like utility knife type targets. You know, like if you have the bottle in, for example, you can go get the bottle. You can go get, I don't know, you know, but it wants more toolbox elements, I think, before I would start jamming 2 transmutes.
Yeah,
I think that's a good point. Okay, with that, I think we'll go to episode 31's list.
Yes, and here we are.
This one is above my pay grade, I think.
You have it up, Misha?
Yeah, I have it up.
Misha frozen?
Oh no, why?
Yeah, Micha's frozen, I think.
All right,
No.
Misha's frozen. Let's tell him to refresh.
Yeah, I'm doing it. Oh god, sorry for the viewers. I'm the man in charge for the computers, and I don't know why I need to refresh all the time. Or why Discord is so harsh to me all the time today. Why? Come on, be kind. Just for you, for the viewers, that you have a little content while we're waiting here for Discord to work again. Come on, Discord. Do what you need to do. Refreshing the Discord, sorry. I really try. I'm working on it to fix it, but I don't know why this is happening to us and why Discord is not starting again. Oh, technical issues. Okay. Try it the smart way. Sorry for that. Oh God. And I think we're back, at least. Okay. I fixed it. Surprise.
If an opponent who controls at least as many lands as you do would put a land onto the
I'm
battlefield.
back. Hey.
Hey, you're back.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm
hear you.
super sorry. I entertained, I tried to entertain everybody again. I don't know what happened, but I'm back.
Well, we can hear you. I can't see you yet.
I have no visual.
Do you have a video?
Yes, I hope so.
As long as you can see us, that's the important thing, right?
Yeah, I can see you. I mean, I could hear you also, but I don't know why the Wi-Fi connection broke down, and so I'm giving myself a hotspot now. I have unlimited data, so it's fine. But I don't.
So we're still recording, right?
Yeah, we're still recording. I mean, I talked to myself for like 2 minutes, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
And people saw refreshing Discord, but I think they're fine.
Do you have episode 31 list up on the screen?
Yeah, Land Equilibrium is up. I would just do one thing. I will reconnect myself so that I maybe get a visual.
All right.
of myself.
So now that's up. So I'll just quickly say the idea of this, as we've been saying, is I want to play a Land Equilibrium. I have more mana rocks than usual. I don't just have the 5 Moxen. I also have 3 Fellwar Stones. And the idea is I'm going to play Geddon, so I have no lands, and I'm not going to play a single land for the rest of the game. And if I don't play a land, my opponent can't play a land either. And the idea is just to use one of my mana rocks to play a black Vice, and I'm just going to Vice you and kill you that way. The rest of the list is control. I have white removal, I have Abyss, I have a Tabernacle, which may be Geddoned and thrown away, and I have a couple Ices and a couple Relics for even more control, and then I have blue power and a couple counter spells. So that's basically the idea to list. Is it's really quite funny to try to lock out your opponent that way, where they literally just died a black Vice and they cannot play another land. Land Equilibrium is a card you never see it played ever, so it's a really funny card to try to build around. And I think the blue-white black shell is a control shell, is a good shell to try to play to.
Yeah, unfortunately, Land Equilibrium, like money-wise, is more expensive, and it's value play-wise, I think, in the format, which is too bad because it is a fun thing to brew around. I mean, it's a very mean deck. It is a hard lock, and we should just make sure everyone understands it. It's a replacement effect that basically says if you control less land than the opponent can't play a land. Or instead of playing a land, it sets a replacement effect where they have to play a land and then discard a land at the same time. There's no opportunity for them to play a land and tap it for mana before discarding it. It all happens within the same effect. And the net result of that is just never being able to to get ahead on mana ever again. So it's like a bonus Armageddon after you get into to guarantee that they can't do anything.
So they can. So you could drop a land to try to avoid a black Vice damage, but that's temporary. You're going to run out of lands to do that with, and then you're just going to have spells in your hand, and you're just going to be
just to get a card out of your hand. You can drop.
Yeah, right. So you literally could do that, but how long? If that's your plan, that plan's not going to work for that long.
Oh, you're just locked out. It's a hard lock. You might as well scoop when the hard lock comes down, assuming you're going to kill them in some other way.
Well, unless of course you have an opponent that's playing with a lot of mana dorks, right, or a lot of mana rocks as well.
Yeah, that's why hopefully Abyss deals with that, or Swords. You can try to eliminate that. I do in the sideboard have a Dust to Dust, which if you're playing a lot of mana rocks, that 2-for-1 does make a huge difference. To take out a Soul Ring and a Mox could really mean a good difference in trying to get your opponent completely locked out. The Fellwar Stones aren't as big a deal because after you get in, they're not going to produce anything. So there
are no lands anymore.
It's completely dead. So Soul Ring might not be great, and you choose your favorite color that you don't want your opponent to play to try to remove that Moxen. Misha, you're still there?
I'm still here. You hear me?
Okay. Oh, great. So we can't see you, but that's okay. That's no big deal.
As long as you're not annoyed by these Discord symbols,
we don't mind that.
Keep it up.
I think we go to episode 32.
Probably the Discord guy is much prettier than I am. I can live with that if that is someone's opinion here, but I can also
Misha, you've never looked so good before, so you're looking great.
I just wanted to say one thing, because now I'm remembering it. I did play against a Land Equilibrium deck in the past, and that was against Hank, and he played it with Mana Vortex from the dark. I guess Armageddon is your Mana Vortex in this.
Yeah, Mana Vortex is the blue Armageddon, right?
Yeah. I just think that's right. So that would be another way that you can go. I don't think that's better though, but it is spicier, and it's really cool because that card is never played. So I'll have to build something with Mana Vortex specifically just to get that on stream. Mitra, I think we go to episode 32.
Yes, and here we are, episode number 32.
Okay, so this was a fun list. Mitra and I do like getting monocolor list on video. We don't think old school is only dual land decks, but we try to play really interesting monocolor decks when we do. I think this is a really interesting mono white list. It's not the typical white weenie list that Dave might face you with and beat you down with. So this is Karma Cyclopean Tomb is the basic idea. When we played our match, I got lucky. Mitra just happened to be playing Swamps, which was great for me. But even if Mitra wasn't, the idea is I'm going to play land tax, try to thin out the deck and grab more of the planes. I have a playset of Ivory Towers to try to gain life. I could hopefully I'm going to be playing the Cyclopean Tomb to start turning my opponent's lands into swamps and let them deal damage each turn. And that's kind of the game plan with this. Curious to see what you guys think.
I mean, I love it. I think it's fantastic. I love that it's monocolored. I think the tendency with Karma Tomb decks is to just kind of build basically a worse version of the deck, but instead of like Jayemdai Tomes, you're using Cyclopean Tombs and Karmas or something like that. And this is just a way spicier, more interesting way of setting yourself up to play a long game and then taking advantage of it with this kind of janky but super fun way of winning. I think it's lovely. I think the Wrath of God is really sweet. Love to see that card anywhere, especially in a main deck. And your basic planes and your Mishra's Factory art choice they're both spot on for aesthetically what this deck is trying to accomplish.
I mean, the fun part about this deck is that instead of playing all the restricted cards, playing 5 colors, you have a lot of white removal. So if you're playing against a creature-based strategy, it's going to be tough to win because A, you'll have Ivory Tower land tax, which you can start gaining life, but you have a playset of swords, you do have the Wrath, you do have 2 moats. If you're playing against a artifact-heavy deck, you do have a playset of disenchants and 2 Dust to Dust. This is just in the main deck. After sideboarding, you can go up to 4 Dust to Dust, and then I think it's going to be very hard and you can have 2 Divine Offerings. So you can have 10 artifact removals post-board. So if you're playing against a Twiddle Vault or the deck, you can really go hard against their artifacts. And if you're playing against a creature-based strategy, you can go up to 3 Wraths and 4 Swords and 2 Modes. So it's going to be hard for either artifact-based decks or creature-based decks to fight this adequately, I think. Glooms aren't great, obviously, because it's mono-white. But the counter to that is you are playing 3 main deck Karmas. So unless your opponent's just splashing black to bring in a Gloom, if your opponent's heavy on swamps, you do have some counterplay. Because if you can get your Karmas down, you do set a clock, even if you're going to have a hard time getting rid of it for a while.
I would almost play 4 Karmas in here. Take the Spirit Link out, add a Karma.
Yeah, I surely don't know the right numbers. This is a kind of really a spicy, cool brew, and this is just the draft that I went with. But you could be totally right. Maybe there should be 4. I'm just saying, like early on, you don't want to just draw so many Karmas, right? Because it's kind of a late game play, so not really sure.
Yeah, 1 is enough.
If you're opening hand, you're having multiple Karmas and multiple Cyclopean Tombs. You just don't have a playable hand. So I wasn't really sure. But I thought maybe 3 and 3 was right. Did we lose Dave?
I have no idea. Dave, are you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
because your camera is off. I just had
we lost your video, but we can hear you, which is fine.
And how did the Kismet do? It's a very cool deck, by the way. I love to see these type of decks.
I mean, Kismet's a good card, right? I mean, a lot of times not being able to use your lands right away is a real pain for your opponent, and it just buys you a little bit of time to set up your combo. So I kind of like it, but yeah, they could be sideboarded out for sure if they're not going to be too useful. And I like in a land tax deck having a Veldon's Cane because you could aggressively feel that you can land tax. So even if you have to discard some of your planes and then you're like, oh no, I won't have any more lands. If you have a Veldon's Cane in the deck that lets you be a bit more aggressive with your Armageddon and land tax. So I do really think that card is needed in this list.
The Veldon's Cane is actually quite cool. So let's move on to the next list. List number...
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is we do have 2 Serra Angels in the sideboard. So if I want to bring those in, I can have kind of a more classic win con other than just the Cyclopean Tomb Karma, and they do fly over the Serra Angels. So.
And probably a lot of
I'd say let's go to...
will just board out the creature removal, right? Because they see no creatures game 1, and you can just attack through, right? Yeah,
that's a Danny Friedman move. He plays creatureless and then has 2 Serra Angels and sometimes Moat in the sideboard. And then if you don't have a way to deal with Serra Angel, Serra blocks and also can really beat you down really quickly. So I like the couple Serras on the sideboard. And City in a Bottle is great here because I think I only have library for Arabian. So if you're a heavy Arabian, the bottle, again, is more removal. So if you're a creature-based list that relies on Arabian, then you're really going to have problems post-board. But with that, I said, let's go to episode 33.
Yeah, and here we are, episode number 33.
Okay, so earlier I played it was basically a black-white shell for Reanimator, and I really wanted to kind of split the baby with being able to hard cast or be able to reanimate. So I was playing Sengir Vampires and Sarah Angels and Shazams. This, I wanted to try the blue, black, red shell, and it's a little bit more all-in Reanimator. I still have a shot. I have one Shazam, which is easier to cast, and a few vampires, but I'm trying to go with a lot of the 6 casting cost creatures, the Modis, the Shivans, and there are 4 Trikes. My photos now, those 4 would be together. I do have Nicobolas, which might be the coolest card in Old School, and if Nicobolas doesn't have a home in a black, blue, red Reanimator package, then he just doesn't have a home in Old School, so he had to be in this list. And I didn't get to swing in and destroy your whole hand, meet you in our episode, but that is living the dream, getting Bolas down and be able to swing in there and deal some damage. But it's a lot of fun. I love the Bizarre Baghdad, really being able to really push that card hard to cycle through the deck. The deck is a little bit heavy with Arabian, with the Bizarres. You really need that card. So I like Artifact Blast for sideboard cards, so at least you have a chance to deal with Bottle before it resolves. But Reanimator is one of my favorite pet decks on the format. Harder to make it work in Swedish and Atlantic, but I'm not going to ever give up, and I was really happy to try this version of Reanimator. I do try other versions later on.
I love that attitude that you say, I want to live the dream. You know, I want to go for that Bolas. I'm just going to go for it. You know, I think we need more attitude like that.
I mean, the upkeep is black, blue, and red, and this is Reanimator, so you have to try.
True. And did you know, I'm sure you spoke to Anna as well, because he's a big fan of Reanimator also. And he recently won a tournament in Leeuwarden with like 60 plus people. It was fantastic.
Yeah, in episode, hopefully you both can join us to help us with the next special. But I do play his list somewhere between episodes 51 to 75. And titled properly First Place Reanimator, because he did finish first place in a 64-person event. So I do play his exact list. As soon as I saw Reanimator actually won a real tournament, I was thrilled for it.
It was a crazy day.
So I'm thrilled, and I do get his list in an episode later on.
Yeah, no, hats off to Anna for sure. I mean, here in the States, we have Marco Baldi, who's basically the Anna Yildirsma of Pennsylvania. But he has Deep Spawn to play with, and don't have that luxury here. This looks like a really tight list. I love everything it's doing. When it comes together, it's a thing of beauty. And just what an awesome thing to just be able to see stuff like All Hallows Eve and Bizarre even hit the table. Really nice photo, except for the fact that the trikes are split across the columns.
I learned my lesson. That doesn't happen again. No, they're a lot of fun. You don't get to see these cards played in Old School very much. So I was super happy to get this list recorded. If there's nothing else, I think we can go to meet you episode 34.
Hulk says move on to the next list. And here we are, number 34. Hulk, because my screen is green, you know. But I know when you need to explain jokes, they're not funny anymore.
I got it.
Okay, nice. So I'm determined to try every possible burn list in Swedish. I really love the idea of a burn deck. This is kind of my own homebrew. I think it's a different type of burn list. I had not seen anything quite like it, but yes, we're starting with the 12 main burn spells, the bolts, the chains, and the side blast. But I decided I was going to try to push the X spells in conjunction with Mana Flare. But to really do that well, we're going to play a couple candlesticks, and then my defense for creatures, since we have candlesticks anyway, they're going to serve double duty, and we're going to play a playset of mazes. So the candlesticks work really well with the mazes, but also work really well with the Mana Flare to be able to get the playset of fireballs, or we have one disintegrator, one earthquake in there as well, to hopefully deal very big amounts of damage. And then when you add that to the regular 12 burn package, And then you have all the restricted, some of the restricted cards. The Brain guys are the two black restricted cards. We have, the blue power. We have balance. We have wheel. That's kind of the idea to this. So it's kind of a different kind of burn list. I really loved playing it. I really think it's quite solid. The sideboard is just all hate. I don't really care about permanence. I might have a candlestick, but I don't really care. So I put a placet of discs in, and then 2 Blood Moons, 2 Energy Flux. Again, these are really hate cards. 2 City in a Bottles. I can go up to 4 Earthquakes. So if you're playing weenie ground creatures, I love Earthquake in a burn list because it's doing 2 things. It's clearing the board as well as dealing damage, trying to get you down from 20 life. So I wanted to be able to go up to 4 Earthquakes. And a couple Disenchants, which I splashed just in case you're playing COP Red or something I want to deal with. But I don't think I need more than that because I do have 4 discs. So that hopefully between the 4 discs and the 2 Disenchants. So the only card that's really not hate is Disenchant, and I only play a couple just in case. And I thought that was an okay splash with the Plateaus, which I was able to basically put in for free because they do produce red too. But yep, that's the list. And I'm curious what everyone thinks about this type of burn list.
Who starts?
Couple quick thoughts. I was going to ask where the Abyss is, noticing that you have Tutor and Twist. Then I counted things up, and you only have 5 black sources, which feels a little bit loose and hard to hit a turn 1 Mind Twist for a bunch or something like that. So I get it. It's you just got a toe and black, hoping to be able to cast those 2 cards if you see them. Then my other thought, I mean, this is a type of a deck that I haven't played too much. I haven't played too much Big Red or Candle Flare or anything like that, or even just like Greg Krager was a person I consider like the sort of the expert of the mono red, like Candle Flare or like Big Red space. He's done a lot of work with those cards. To me, it feels like Chain Lightning and Mana Flare kind of pull against each other a little bit, and maybe you just want to go bigger, like do more flares or do, I don't know, Mana Vaults or something, do more Disintegrate, something like that, instead of the smaller stuff. To just really lean into the candles and the flares and whatnot. But that said, I haven't played it, so I don't know.
But it's kind of like, I guess, a mild candlestick, so you don't need your Mana Flare candle, but if you do, then it's great.
I mean, I think that's the idea. I don't want to push Candlestick too far. So if I get the Candle Flare, that's great. If I don't, I still have a lot of burn. And then the Candlestick Maze is a really good combo. It's quite annoying if you're hoping to get in there with mid-range creatures. But yeah, you could be right. I don't really know. I just couldn't see building a total burn deck and not having 12 burn spells to start with. But maybe the chains aren't that great.
Anything else you want to say about the list, or shall we move on?
Let's go to a 35. Not too much to say about a burn list, but it was a lot of fun to play.
And
boring. Move on.
Yeah. So as like I mentioned in the intro,
skip. Boring. Skip.
Not every deck is that spicy, but like we do want to get every deck recorded once. So episode 35, we decided to play a tier 1 match, the deck versus ATOG. This is Woolmagrand's version of ATOG with the dibs of the sideboard. I think this is slightly more favored against the deck. It is a really, really beautiful list. There's not that much to say. Everybody knows this list. But it had to appear somewhere in our quest to get everything recorded. So if anyone has anything to say about it, this is one of the stronger ATOG lists. But I think we can quickly go through this.
Just one shout out from the guy.
You'll win games.
Just one shout out from the guy who played against it. This was not the list which got me tilting. Like I had one game not long ago where I tilted, and I never tilt on stream, but that got me tilting. Charles, you remember that one, but this was not the one. So let's move on to 36. Here we are.
All right, 36. Okay, so I had up until this point, neither Mitra or I had Titania Song on stream, so we wanted to get it in an episode. White removal. We have a parfait package with some of the artifacts. We have a mirror, which is a big artifact, which could get us out of trouble or turn into a creature later on. And then we have the restricted cards, including a Wrath early on to try to wipe the board. And then Titania Song's a late finisher. This list did win games in our episode, if I remember correctly. It's a lot of fun. Maybe with Titania Song, the better list is to play more blue with Copy Artifact. Maybe I should try that next time. But it's a lot of fun to try to build a board state, control it, and then later on play Titania Song, and you can oftentimes just win in one turn.
Kind of looks like a Ben Twitchen deck.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen a lot of decks that he's played that look kind of like this, with like random 2-ofs and stuff like that. I mean, it's all in the Parfait Song kind of package, right? Maybe I'm giving him not as much credit as I should, because he plays some really kind of out there things and puts up really good results with them.
Yeah. Actually,
it would be nice maybe to add a Nova Pentacle instead of an Abyss. To be a bit more like spicy or something.
That's a good card. I mean, Abyss is just such a good card for a control package. I'm going to play the Titania Song late, but yeah, that's a really fun, spicy card for sure.
Yeah, just to do something else when you think, okay, because I'm seeing the Abyss a lot, and you think, okay,
I don't play Abyss very much, like if I look through my list, but yeah. maybe it's appeared in a couple episodes now, but too much.
To be honest, Titania Song is a super unusual Magic card. Normally, Magic cards end their effect as soon as they leave the battlefield, but Titania Song's effect stays till the end of turn, which is kind of weird because you normally do not have things like that in Magic, especially not in old school Magic, which is kind of cool.
Which makes it really playable, because if you don't counter it, the effect is happening at least for the remainder of that turn, so you have a chance to get. And Summoning Sickness is based on when the artifacts were brought into play, not when they were turned into creatures. So it is a different win con, and I was happy to get this new win con till episode 36. But I'll try a different version at some point. But this was kind of the control package with Song. Cool. Anything else, or we'll move on?
Move on?
Okay, we'll move on.
Dave has appointments. Move on. Here we are.
All right, episode 37. Okay, so this was Akos's list that he liked playing before he stepped away from Magic for a while. I loved this list the first time he played it against me. For a Serendip Djinn is almost never played. When it is played, it's played as a one-of, typically, I guess, in a kind of 12 burn package. It's really not played very much. And when I saw a list that had a play set of them, I just loved it. So the idea of this is you have land tax, which you're hopefully going to thin out the deck, draw some of your lands, and you have the deck's control package here. You have 4 swords, you have 4 disenchants, you have 4 counter spells, and the idea is you're going to play the Serendip Djinn, and you're going to use its downside, which is you have to sack a land in your upkeep, or it's destroyed, and if it's an island, it deals 3. You're going to try to use the fact that you have to sack a land to your advantage by trying to help you activate land tax because you're sacking lands. So eventually you have less lands than your opponent, and A, you can draw lands that aren't islands, which you can keep playing, and second of all, you're thinning out your deck at the same time. So I really love the idea. This deck did very well in the episode, and it's a super fun deck to play. In the sideboard, it plays, I forget what the card is called. What is the card that destroys all the Antiquities cards?
Golgothian Silex.
Yeah, that's a fun card to see. And this deck isn't heavy on Antiquity, so if you're playing against a Suchi or otherwise robot deck, that's a fun card to bring in.
Mishra's Factory, of course.
Yeah, that's true. And you don't have Mishra's Factory here, so that's fun. And King Solomon is another fun card. You can't play City in a Bottle because you're relying on your Serendip Djinns to win. So if your opponent's playing a lot of the Arabian cards, instead of playing Bottle, you can play King Solomon and just deal with the Arabian cards that way, which is a fun, spicy way to do it. But this is a super list, and super happy Akos built such a nice list.
And super happy that
this deck is hilarious.
Yeah, the deck is super nice. From time to time, he switched the King Suleiman for reverse damage, which is also quite cool. So yeah, with that said, any questions or thoughts about the list?
What do you guys think? What do you think, Dave?
No, nothing specific. I think it's just kind of funky and offbeat. I mean, if it had tomes instead of serendiptions, it wouldn't raise an eyebrow. But this is a whole other angle. I'm sure people are not expecting.
I also
cool playset of serendipgens. You don't see it often. Super cool.
And also the fact that he plays the small book is kind of cool because it's a nice synergy with Lantex. You're also not seeing the small books really often. I think it's a highly underplayed card, especially in aggro decks. You can
every list I play the small book in, it's a superstar card.
Yeah.
But yeah, with all the land text, to be able to cycle through your deck is great. Okay, so we don't have that much to say about this one. We'll go to episode 38, which is a very spicy list.
Are you sure? Okay, so let's show it to the viewers. Here we are. Oh yeah, that is pretty cool.
Okay, this is Juxtapose Deck, and this list is really fun. So the basic idea is you play Juxtapose, which it's a 1/1 for 1 red, and it gets a +1/+1 at every upkeep. And the downside to this is you have to pay the same number of counters as 1/1 token counters.
You mean the ooze? You play the ooze.
Yeah. And if you don't, it becomes tap and deals that much damage. So you play it. Your first summoning sick. Your next turn, you have to pay 1 colorless mana, and it gets a +1/+1 counter. So it's a 2/2 creature you can attack. Your next turn, your next upkeep, it becomes a 3/3. You have to pay 2 red, and so on. And the idea is it could be a lot of fun to try to attack with this creature that keeps growing. And when it gets too big and out of control, hopefully you can cast Juxtapose, which was the first time that card appeared in Brewers Tavern, which you'll see 2 copies of. And you can give it to your opponent, and it'd be quite funny if you can attack with it until you can't control it, and then you give it to your opponent, and then they're stuck with this creature that's going to deal them all this damage that they can't pay for in your upkeep. The other ways you can deal with it is you have a playset of Diamond Valleys, which, again, you don't see very many decks with a playset of Diamond Valleys, which is you could just sack and gain the life. Or you can...
Wish I had a playset of Diamond Valleys.
Well, they weren't very much when I picked them up in somewhere early 94, mid 94. But they're really a lot of fun. You could also put a Spirit Link on the ooze, which then wouldn't be a big deal. I really like this deck. Has a 1/of artillery, which is really fun. I've played games where if you have 1 Spirit Link on it, you're dealing 2 damage to your opponent. You're only taking 1 damage yourself. I've had games where I've been able to put 2 Spirit Links on it, where you're dealing 2 damage to your opponent, and you're actually gaining a life for the pleasure of doing it, which is a lot of fun. But between the bolts, the Spirit Links, you can control opponent's creatures. You do have a playset of Rook Eggs, and that obviously combos really well with Diamond Valley. So the deck's a lot of fun. You do have a Earthquake, which can deal with your opponent's creatures, as well as hopefully crack your Rook Eggs if you need to do it that way. So it's a lot of fun. You have Falling Star on the sideboard, which is great, which I think did a lot of work in our match. And Energy Flux, which is really good, and Discs, and just regular sideboard cards that you would typically see. But this list is a lot of fun. It plays really differently, and I'm super happy to get it in an episode, and really love to hear what Thomas and Dave have to say.
My opinion doesn't count. No, just kidding.
We know what you think, Nietzsche.
I think with the Juxtapose, you can also trade an artifact, right? You can do 2 things.
Right, so it does do 2 things. If both players have a creature, you're trading highest casting cost creature, and if it's a tie, you choose. If you have an artifact, you trade that too. And this deck is designed to not have artifacts that are good. So your Chaos Sword, which is a great artifact, can be spent, right? But everything else is going to be a mana rock. So if your opponent has a good artifact, you're giving them at best a Soul Ring, if not a Mox, and you're going to take back something good. On the same front, you're going to give them a creature, and you're going to take back one of their creatures. So if you have a Shivan out, you're not going to cast Juxtapose probably. They have to deal with that. They have a very short clock when you have a 5/5 flyer with fire breathing. Or artillery could even kill itself. I think, right? Is it 1/3 or I don't even remember?
It's a 1/3, yeah.
So you can't do that. But if you have that, that's, maybe you can't Juxtapose if you don't want to give your opponent that. But you do have Diamond Valley to get rid of that if you want. So yeah, Juxtapose will almost certainly benefit you artifact-wise, and almost certainly will benefit you creature-wise too.
Yeah, because I recently played against a Juxtapose deck as well, and they had a Bull Lightning. They gave me a Bull Lightning after attacking me first, of course.
Well, we have one. So Dominic is the Juxtapose master, and we're going to review in this special his mono blue list, and I do play his 5-color. Well, I've really modified it quite a bit, but I started with his 5-color in the next special, which will be episode 51 to 75. So I love Juxtapose. This is the first it's appearing. We're not pushing it too hard, so there's only a couple copies, but when it works really well. What do you think about this, Dave?
Yeah, a couple quick things. You mentioned putting Spirit Link on the Primordial Ooze, which works up to the point where it would actually kill you. If it does get too big, it'll do the damage before Spirit Link triggers.
That's true. Just
be careful about that. I would love to see more artillery, frankly. In the times when I've messed around in this space, artillery did a lot of work along with main decking Cop Red, which is another cheeky way of getting around the damage that Ooze would do to you, and also the damage that artillery would do to you. And then another natural in the space is Moat as well, because you can give them the Ooze, and then they can't even attack you with it through the Moat.
That's just mean.
Yeah, that's true. But I do want to attack. I do want to win games with Ooze too, which is really fun.
For sure.
So it's really fun to try to use it on offense and then throw it to your opponent when you're done with it. So
definitely.
It's a little bit less fun to try to squeeze Moat in. But the deck has 4 Spirit Links, which is unusual, 4 Diamond Valleys, which is unusual, 4 Oozes, which is really unusual. So this was a lot of fun to play this list.
Yeah, it's a sweet build.
Okay, I think we go to episode 39.
Yeah, and here we are, episode number 39.
All right, speak of Juxtapose.
More Juxtapose.
Yeah.
More Juxtapose, but this is the full playset. So this is Dom's, I made a few tweaks to it, but this is Dom's mono blue list. The idea basically is we are going to play a Trike or a Tetravis. We're going to hopefully play it with a Mana Vault so we can get it out quickly. And we're going to either spend the Trike or split the counters off the Tetravis. And ideally, we're going to Juxtapose and give your opponent a 1/1 artifact creature and a tap Mana Vault and take back a good creature and some good artifact, which is quite funny to do that. So you let your opponent deal with, if they can, untapping the Mana Vault or taking damage. And if they do untap it, it's almost like half a time walk. I mean, they're going to be spending all their mana dealing with that. And it's a really funny trade. You do have copy artifacts to try to copy the Trikes and the Tetravis. You have Sages to try to either, if you need to get rid of a Mana Vault, to do that. Or you can, again, if you could live the dream and split the Tetravis, you could sack those creatures and just draw cards. My kind of contribution to this archetype is the novelty with Dance of Many, which I really liked this combo. It's a card never used in the dark, but it's blue, and it will it's an enchantment that creates a token of any creature in play. But unlike Clone or Doppelganger, which sticks on the board, this has an upkeep cost of 2 blue. And what I really like is, if your opponent plays a quick Shazam and you want to buy time, you can copy a Shazam, and that's great. That could buy time or trade. You can copy a Trike, which can deal more damage or can remove opponent's creatures. But what I really like is you can copy a creature, then you can Juxtapose and give your opponent the token of that creature. And then in your upkeep, you still control the enchantment. You just don't pay the blue, and that creature will be killed. So I think that's a pretty cute way to...
Very cool.
Yeah, it fits with the theme. So I had to get that in. Dominic loved that idea when he heard it. He was like, "Oh, I definitely have to try this again." To go with the theme, I wanted to put an Old Man of the Sea in the sideboard. We're going with the theme of stealing your opponent's creatures, and I thought Old Man's a really cool card, so I wanted to get that. Also, I don't think it appeared in an episode, so I wanted to get that in there. But that's kind of the idea. If you're playing against control, I have 4 counter spells. That's what Dom likes to do, and I think 3 Hercules in the sideboard. So it's a lot of fun. And again, this is a monocolor list. and it's super interesting. And bravo to Dom, because he took a card, Juxtapose, that was, I thought, almost completely unplayable, and he built a whole archetype around it, and I really, really love it. It's one of the most creative decks I've seen in Old School, if not the most creative deck. So I really love playing this list a lot. I'm curious what you guys think.
This is a classic. I think it's great. I don't think I have any further comment.
I just have one comment. That's I like the Hercules Recall in the sideboard, but they will also, of course, work in the main board, right? Because you give away your artifacts. Then you play the Recall, you get your own stuff back. It's like, I like it. This is one of the lists that I just want to play right now.
It's a lot of fun.
It's so much fun, for sure.
I actually like the 5-color Juxtapose list that I play in the next series even more. I love that list, but this is really close up there. So if nothing else, everyone try this. It plays very differently, and it's a completely different game plan than most Old School decks. And with that, I think we'll go to episode 40.
Okay, we can go to 40. I just give me 1 second, and here we are, number 40.
Okay, I believe this is one of Brian Manolakis's burn lists, if I'm not mistaken. And
this looks like his fingerprints.
I'm
for sure
determined to try every burn list, so when I saw it, I had to play it. I love the main deck, Blood Moons. Ball Lightning, what a cool card. This was a card, when I was a kid, everybody wanted to play this in their decks. This was a really cool card. This was the chase card from the dark, from what I remember. The rest is just burn and restricted cards. I really loved it. And I like the copper toplets in the sideboard. I like the falling stars in the sideboard. And Mano deals with the possibility of an opponent playing cop red with 1 disenchant and a sleight of mind, which is really funny because if your opponent does play COP red, it's really funny to turn that to like COP green. Just think it's hysterical. So that's kind of how he dealt with that.
But that's so much cooler to do than just disenchanted, right? I mean, let's definitely
live in the dream. But I really like the copper tablets too, because that if you're playing against a control list, that does put a clock on the game. Those tend to not last that long because they really do have to be removed. What do you think, Dave, of this list?
Yeah, no, I love tablet. I think the order of business here is to hopefully play your off-color restricted card before putting down Blood Moon. I don't know. There's always that tension in these lists. Somehow it works for him. I've had less success. I'm generally kind of off Blood Moon, but I know his rationale, right? Like the rationale is that if you can stick a turn, 1 or 2 Blood Moon, you can just run away with the game, and it doesn't matter what you're casting and not casting. So maybe you're main decking them, you're seeing if you can steal one in game 1, and maybe you board them out or mess with them somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the point of that is you might have a 10-pound weight you're carrying with Blood Moon on board, but your opponent hopefully will have a 20-pound weight that they have to run with, and it still will be necessary.
And I love the main deck bottle. As always, I'm a huge fan of that. And it's a 4-color mana base, but look how he manages his bottle exposure by only running 2 City of Brass. This deck is not complicated. It does what you think it's going to do. Cast a bunch of burn spells, cast a bunch of restricted spells, and hope to just outplay your opponent basically, and you'll be fine. No need for fancy card advantage or anything like that.
Yeah, what I just wanted to add is I love Blood Moon against Maze of Ith. So Blood Moon and Ball Lightning, they just, they go hand in hand. It's just a great combination. And I like it just when you go Ball Lightning, Chain Lightning, Lightning Bolt. Yep. That's a cool thing to do.
Any thoughts on this list?
I think it's super effective. Like every spell deals as much damage as it could. Even if you just run a super greedy mana base, I think the mana base is super, super greedy. But especially the Blood Moons help you to cast the Ball Lightnings in a way. Because when you put down an early Blood Moon, your factories are just mountains as well, so you can swing through. So I kind of like the list. And if there's nothing more to say, we can go to 41, I would say.
Yeah. Let's do 41.
And here we are.
Okay, so to continue the theme, and I think this is the last burn list. I don't just play burn, but all the burn lists are different. So
I feel sorry for Mitya. So much.
So I'm not repeating anything, but so
this is what I wanted to see before.
So this is talking about. This is my favorite mono red list. This is definitely one of my own creations, and the kind of ideas. So it's a mana flare deck that also plays gauntlets. So we have 7 of these, and the idea is my opponent's going to be able to remove some of them, but not all of them. So I'm going to get some amount of gauntlet / mana flares to stick. I do have bolts. I do have chains. I have 8 X spells. I have a playset of forks, which they serve 2 functions. I can either try to double an X spell or a bolt if I'm at the end of a game. But also, if I want to try a big X spell, I can keep the fork as a counter spell in case my opponent tries to counter. I can counter right back. But the main kind of reason why I think this deck is cool is Suchis are great, but they tend to die in your attack step. And what can you do with that 4 Suchi mana in your attack step? And the answer is only something with an instant. Well, what is an instant that's going to help you with 4 mana in your attack step? And the answer is Inferno. So this is a card that's never played in the dark. It's I think it's 2 red and 5 colorless. Is that right? No.
Well, it's 7 mana. Yeah. It's 5.
It's 6 mana.
Is it 6?
Isn't it red 4?
I
think it's red 5.
It's red 5. Wait, the guy with
so
no
it's
camera can check it for you.
Okay, you check. I think it's red 5.
I think
and with Suchi, so the dream is you attack with Suchi. If it dies in the attack step, you have a 4 mana discount to try to cast Inferno. And you don't have a lot of creatures or any permanents, basically. You have, I guess, mana flares. But you don't have any other creatures. So Inferno does 6 damage to every ground creature, flying creature, and to each opponent. So if Suchi dies in your attack step, it only costs you 3 mana. And you can deal 6 damage to everything on board, all the creatures on board, plus to both of you. So it's like...
that doesn't... Your mana pool's going to empty before you get a chance to cast a sorcery, though. If it dies,
it's an instant.
It's an instant. Inferno is instant.
Sorry, what?
Inferno.
Oh my god!
Inferno's. Yeah, that's so good about it.
Okay.
And I've actually seen a Dutch player do this called Martin, and he's kind of known for that in the tournament scene in the Netherlands. Yeah.
This is why Inferno. This is why this deck was built this way. So you have it's 2 red and 5 colorless to cast.
Yeah.
In the attack step of Suchi, it disappears. You have a 4 Suchi mana. Inferno is an instant. You have a 4 discount, so it's only 3 mana, and you can do 6 damage to every creature, which will wipe out every creature. Every playable creature in Old School is 6 power less. Yes, a troll might live. Is it possible somebody has Nicol Bolas on board or some 7? I mean, they're fringe cards if it has a bigger toughness than 6. So basically, you're wiping the board with that 1 card, and you want to race to 0. You're a burn deck, so dealing 6 damage to yourself and 6 to your opponent is a really good deal. And sometimes you might even be able to fork that and do 12 damage to everything. So the idea to this is the Suchis are great to play. Your burn is great. You're going to be able to, your opponent may be able to remove some amount of the gauntlets and mana flares, but probably not all of them. So you'll get something to stick. And then you have your playset of forks, and you hopefully have your Suchi trick with Inferno, which it feels like a sorcery, but it's an instant. So you get something to do with your Suchi mana in the attack step. And this is mono red. So I do love monocolor decks, and this is an interesting mono red. One more thing is, and then I'll let you guys say something. This deck doesn't care. I think Chaos Orb is wrong in the main. There's no permanent you care to remove in the main. You are trying to race your opponent, and if you don't win the race, you just die. If you do win, then you don't want to draw something that's going to remove a permanent. Now, post board, you have to deal with COP red, of course. So 4 discs and a Chaos Orb are the only way that mono red can deal with that. So they do belong in the sideboard. Of course, you need 4 red blasts because you have to fight blue blasts as well as you can. I do put Blood Moon in the sideboard if that's a great card, and then bottles and a couple shatters. But that's basically the list. But it's a really interesting mono red list, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
No, it's impressive how much I don't know about the card Inferno, I guess. I don't know how much it costs. I don't know the casting speed. Any of that shows how little I play it. But this is fantastic. I love to see it. I love also that you could use Mana Flare to help you cast your Gauntlet of Might, help you ramp up there. This is it's crazy. I mean, and just the thought of swinging in with a dragon for like 12 or something, or 13 or 14. The one time that comes together just feels so good.
Yeah, the fire breathing's insane when you have a Shivan on board and you have Mana Flares and Gauntlets. It's crazy. You just end the game really fast.
Yeah, 100%.
What I like about this list, just two things I want to share about it, is that you've chosen not to play with ATOG, which I think is great. It's just nice to see the dragons. And that you're playing with 4 forks. I think more people should do that, including myself. It's better than most people think.
I can tell you the forks are so good when my pieces are in place and I can fireball for whatever it is, 12, 13, 14, I can save 2 red in case my opponent has a counter spell to just counter back with a fork. So you could try to double your spells, or just you give yourself a little bit more confidence that you could just end the game right there. So I think it's great. Mitya, what do you think?
The list was super hard to play against. I guess I lost close to every game we played because this list is also really effective. It burns for a lot. Also, the fact, as you said, that you can just fork X spells is so good. Like, you tap 3 mountains at some point, gain 9 mana, and just fork it. So you're dealing 14 damage with just there, or you have 9 damage with counter backup or something like that. The list was really good. One thing which you could maybe consider is cutting the Ball Lightning for a Dragon Whelp, because the Whelp is kind of another fireball, you know what I mean, on a stick, at least once.
Well, you definitely found the flex slot in this list. So I wasn't sure, should that be a Ball Lightning? Should it be a Chain Lightning? Should it be... You choose. If there's one card that I think would be a flex slot, it would be the Ball Lightning. But it was fun to put one of them in, so why not?
100%.
Anything else? Otherwise, I love this mono red list. It's my favorite mono red. We'll go to episode 42.
So let's move on, and here we are.
All right, so this is the second one I'm not going to talk about because we have the creator of this amazing list. This is kind of like Juxtapose in a way that Juxtapose was a card I didn't think was playable. Weakstone was another card I didn't think was playable. But our own Dave Bart somehow took an unplayable card and built a really, really, really cool list with this. This was so much fun. I think this drove Mitya crazy with the Weakstones and copies.
Yep.
But it was great doing it. And Dave, why don't you tell us about this deck, how you came up with it, and what the kind of general ideas and what your thoughts on this are. And A+.
Yeah. Maybe. I've been messing around in this space for a long time as well. This is like sort of like an updated version, like a 2021 version of a deck that I played in Eternal Weekend in 2017 in Pittsburgh, which is basically like Icy Manipulator, Psychic Venom. I wanted to kill people with Icy and Venom. So it started with that combo, and then also just built around a card that I really loved to play at the time, which was Transmute Artifact. And so the idea was to have like a Transmute toolbox, and just have a really kind of janky artifact-based control deck that could kill people with the Psychic Venom. So everything kind of proceeds from that, I guess. And back years ago, I didn't have Weakstone. But then I kind of discovered, I don't know what event I was playing in or what format I was even playing, when I realized that you only need a couple of these cards to just shut down most incoming attacks. And that was what the deck was having a hard time with decks that get out pretty fast and overwhelm me with a lot of creatures. A couple of Weakstone just shut everything down. Actually, you know who it was? I should credit Scott Bradley for playing Weakstone and his deck, which he called Basalt and Battery. I think at Eternal Weekend in, I want to say 2019. And just showed how strong of a card that can be for a 4-drop that just kind of sits there and generally does not that much. It's a surprising effect and frustrating to play against for sure. The rest is like a bunch of one-ofs that you can tutor or transmute for. You've got the one Relic Barrier, one Bottle, one Meek Stone, one Ivory Tower. You've got the Chaos Orb that you can go and grab out of the board. You've got some other one-off options there, the Stick, the Mirror, the Tormod's Crypt. And so it's really versatile. There's a lot of really kind of complicated lines. You can win attacking with Factory. You can win with the Venoms. You can win just going off with Song at the end. And all of those are really fun. And then I guess the only thing I would point out from the sideboard should be mostly self-explanatory, but the Copper Tablets are for the control matchup. It's a deck that would just scoop hard to like a real control deck like the deck or something like that. And Copper Tablets give you game, especially when you're copying them and pinging down their own City of Brasses with your Ices.
One thing I'll say about this list is the copy artifact on Weakstone was really good. You can end up with 3 or 4 weak stones out there, and your opponent then just can't attack.
Weak stone gives -0, -1, -0, right?
To attacking creatures.
Attacking creatures. Yeah.
So your creature still can defend, right, with their full power. So the copies really made the weak stones great, because if you have one out and you copy it, now it's doing twice as much work. And what I love about this was this: when you play Song, the weak stones have no text box anymore. They're just 4/4s. So they're not hurting themselves in any way, and they're just good at that point. So you can weak stone copy weak stone or copy it again. And later on, they're just 4/4s, which are really tough to deal with. Plus, you have 4 ices. So you can end up with a lot of 4/4 creatures late in the game. And I know I spoke with Dave about this, but like this deck can't really deal with energy flux. But you're just going to lose some games. You're playing something super spicy and super fun. That's just a hard card for this deck to deal with post-board.
Yeah, I'm thinking now that you mentioned that, the thing, like, is there something in your toolbox that you could add? But of course, when you add like a Nevinyrral's Disc, which is in the sideboard, then you'll also blow up a lot of your own stuff.
Mm-hmm. You can't win them all. But this deck is super fun.
I like the deck, and I like Psychic Venom on City of Brass. It's always great with an icy 3 damage a pop. It's,
I mean, we're all kind of spicy brewers, and I think we can all live with the fact that there are matchups which you never win with a spicy brew, right? Like when I play my 4 elephant graveyards from time to time, I do not expect to win against the deck. Like.
Yeah, but that's okay. When you do that, I'll play poison counters, and you'll still win every single game. Misha finished that match, Elephant Graveyard deck against poison counters, thinking that he just came up with a better deck than the deck, because he couldn't lose.
No, I think.
Okay, if there's nothing left in episode 40, nothing left in 42. This is the second of 2 decks that Dave was nice enough to give me the list to play. Love both of them. Let's go to episode 43.
Yeah, and here we are, 43.
Okay, so this is Magnus's pet deck. This is Project M. I played it I don't know when I played it, if I had his most recent version. This was on his blog. I hope I did. So I played it with exactly as many dual lands as he was playing. I didn't make any changes. I'm not going to really do this justice kind of describing it, but I think Magnus's idea is he has different game plans depending on what he draws and what his opponent's doing. He might have a Guardian Beast with a Chaos Orb and Nevinyrral's disc going on, or he could have some beaters down, which is the what is that? What is the black creature below Beast? I can't remember. Yakmon's Demon. Or a Solkanar, or does he have a Mahamoti? So he might go that route, or he can kind of control the board a little bit with Ices or Chaos Orb, and he has a Doppelganger too. So I don't really know. I'm not going to do this
Solkanar.
Solkanar, but it was a lot of fun to play. The sideboard still confuses me a little bit. Like, I don't understand what like Power Sync does in the sideboard. Like, I asked Misha didn't know. I don't know. So I'm not sure about every one of these sideboard cards, what you would bring them in for. We do have a Timmy in the sideboard, so of course Thomas will love that. You probably think, well, there should be 3 more and they should be in the main, but there is one in the sideboard. The Force Field really, that is never played, that's in the sideboard, I really love. But this was a lot of fun to play, and of course, it's Magnus's deck, so it was a super honor to play it. And the first time I played this was against Misha. in an episode, so I didn't have any practice ahead of time. But really curious what you guys think.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, because I'm now really thinking about the power sink. Why is the power sink there? And I think maybe when he plays against like, I don't know, a counter deck or a deck that wants to do a lot of stuff in your own turn, then it's a way to force him to tap his lands down or something. Maybe.
It's obviously to bring in against Eureka. Just to put them off their spot. That's in my tongue is firmly in cheek on this one. This is the type of deck that is just like a really worn in baseball glove that only fits one human being. And to understand all the different corners and lines of play, you just have to be MG, I think. There's definitely also a toolbox aspect here, right, with the 2 transmutes. He's pulling up stuff like the mirror, the trike, the disc, icy, chaos orb, whatever it is to fit the situation, and that explains the one of artifacts in the sideboard also. But beyond that, my God, he wants to ride the beast disc combo. He wants to be surprised by whatever he's top decking. I think for MG and hopefully for a lot of us, old school is just kind of a delight. You're playing off the top of your deck. You don't know what's going to happen next. And he wants to inject some of that unpredictability. And he wants to be rewarded by making the correct lines of play accordingly. So I don't know if there's too much more that we can gain by unpacking or nitpicking, different choices, because they're very, very specific to the man.
Last I'll say is that his MG's other pet deck, Adventure Island, I do play in an episode, which if you tune in to the next series review where we review episode 51 to 75, you'll see that. But this was, I think, his favorite deck, and was super happy to get this in an episode. Misha, anything on this that you have to say?
Not really. I mean, Dave mentioned it all. MG's playing that for years. He's practicing with it for years. So he plays a lot of one-offs, which I like, because having a potential answer to everything, especially with Demonic Tutor in the toolbox, is kind of great. And a lot of cards he also switches it a lot. So when he posts the list on his blog, this is not like the actual list he's playing at the moment. From time to time, he also switches that for tournaments. So probably the choice of, for example, the power sync was just for the tournament. I mean, when you expect a lot of matchups where your opponents wants to tap out, the power sync gets even better. This is what I think. So,
okay. So with that, I'd say let's go to episode 44.
Yeah, and here we are.
Okay, so one of my favorite deck builders in old school is Anna, and this was one of his lists. And when I saw it, I had all the cards. I had to build this list, and
I played against it, man. It was horrible.
It's so
definitely
annoying.
want to thank Misha for indulging me that episode. Misha was not happy. I'll just say that. The idea is, and I told this to Misha at the beginning of the episode, I don't actually want to win a single game. Not one. If I win a game with Fireball Mirror, I promise you it was an accident. I just want to tie games. And Misha, I think, was playing just by chance. I think he was playing blue-green flyers like the Flying Men with the Scrib Sprites and Pendelhaven. And this just tortured him. Because he would get close to getting me down in life, and I would Eureka and have a Divine Intervention out, and it would be a tie 2 turns later, and that would be it. This deck, so that for sure was the first time those cards appeared. I also have Scheherazade, which I love that this card is Richard Garfield's favorite card in Magic, and he always said that. And he did design the whole Arabian Nights set, so I always think it was special for that reason. But it's a really fun card to get to see in an episode, because you never see it played, and you get a sub game within the actual game of Magic. And if you do not, the funny thing about this card is, if you do not win, you lose half your life. So if the sub game is a tie, Divine Intervention, you do lose half your life. So it's just quite funny, and your
David's
opponent
shaking his
oftentimes
head.
might not. No, I do think that's right. I think it was eroded. You'll have to look it up.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. I'm just shaking my head because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Most of the time, I like playing exactly 60 cards. Once in a while, if I'm playing a friend's list that has 61, I'm okay with that. I actually think 62 is right here because oftentimes when you're in the Scheherazade sub-game, neither of you can beat the other, and it literally comes down to who's going to deck themselves first. I've also played sub-games where you basically want to mull 7 times. You don't want any cards because if your opponent's not paying attention, you want to start with 0 cards in hand because you're just going to lose and you'll deck yourself. But at least starting with an extra couple cards in the deck could make a difference. You do need Eureka to be able to get your mirror and your 8. It's Divine Interventions in 8 casting costs. So I think that's one of the highest casting cost cards on the whole game. So you definitely need that. The rest is just a blue-white control list with a few Sullivans to help you find your combo pieces. And Mirror is really great because that can buy you time. You can get 10 or 12, 14 damage, and then Mirror, and now you're back at 20, and that's going to buy you more turns to do what you need to do. And what's really annoying is you have a transformational sideboard to Twiddle Vault, which is also really annoying. So this is just going to torture your opponent. This deck really could almost, if you switched, you could switch this and play Twiddle Vault and then transmute into Divine Intervention. That would be funny too. Either way, it would be a really funny deck. Definitely, you don't want to bring it to a tournament. You won't make any friends. But it was really fun to get in an episode. And thanks again, Misha, for being a good sport that day. But
No problem.
Thomas, Dave, what do you two think of this?
Well, like I said, I played against it, and I know the story behind it. I think it was the last edition of the Corona Cup, which was an online tournament. Obviously, we've still got COVID, and Anna wanted to build a deck that would give him as many time to play in the tournament as possible. So he always wanted to have a draw. So the match would take longer, and his whole experience in the last online tournament would take longer. But we all know what happened, so we're still playing online. So no worries, Anna.
Yeah, just check your local regulations for what happens in the event of a draw. On this side of the pond, maybe you like going to Chaos Orb flip-offs, and this is a perfect way of getting there.
Yeah, this deck could just be called the Chaos Orb because you're probably just going to end up flipping at the
Probably,
end.
yeah.
That's a really good point, actually. Yeah.
If you're just like the best flipper in the world, maybe just play this deck and always force a draw.
That'd be really funny.
There
Do you have anything to say about this one?
No, it's fine. I love to play against it. It was a pleasure. Not.
Also, I don't know what other list I can ever get Divine Intervention in a new list on. So this might be the only time we see this card for Micha. Okay, we'll go to the next list, episode 45.
And here we are.
Great. So this is Olga's list, I think from either the 19 or 20 Summer Derby. When I saw this list, I just fell in love with it instantly. It's really cool. First, you never see Kabul played at all. This is a place that that card is a 1/1 creature, and it gains +1/+1 counters based on whatever creatures die. And it has a memory in the turn what creatures died. So if you disc, blow everything up, and let's say 6 creatures die on both sides, and then you play the Gould, it gains those counters at the end of that turn, which is really cool. You have Blazing Effigy, which it's a 0/3, which can block, but when it goes to the graveyard, you can deal 3 damage to another creature. So you could feed it to your Fallen Angel, and you could deal 3 damage to one of your opponent's creatures, or you can Diamond Valley it to gain life, and then you can deal 3 damage to one of your opponent's creatures. And if you have a Ghoul on play, it gains the counter too. You have Rook Eggs, which obviously work with Diamond Valley, which is great. You do have Earthquakes, which can get rid of your Rook Eggs, which would be great. Or it could get rid of your Blazing Effigies, which can also then allow you to deal 3 damage to something else, which could also feed your Fallen Angel. You have Animate Deads, which are great, which I really love. I just think this list is so unique and so different, and I really enjoyed playing this. And way to go, Olga, with a really, really neat list.
I really
What
like
do you
the
guys think?
synergy between Disharmony and the Diamond Valleys. you should tweak on that in a list, because I know
Oh,
Charles,
yeah.
you love
It's really great, and it's not expected either. It's never expected, so that's the Disharmony is a really spicy, fun card.
Yeah. And yeah, guys, what do you think?
I mean, I love it. Great to see Cabo Ghoul. Having a card that remembers what happened in the game before it even entered the the battlefield is pretty ridiculous.
Pretty neat.
Things aren't templated that way anymore. But I mean, this is pretty much everything that I want to be doing. It's a super fun space to mess around in.
Yeah, I agree. Really funky. It's just nice to see some of these cards being played.
Yeah, I want to try to get as many different cards as possible, and this deck had a bunch of different cards which hadn't appeared before, so really fun. Sideboard's pretty standard, strong. And if nothing else, we'll go to the next list, episode 46.
And here we are.
Okay, so this is the list this is my Magnus Opus deck building. I will never build another list that will be introducing a new combo in Old School, but this is Tabernacle Plane. This is my favorite and my pet list. The basic idea is it's a 3-card combo. You have Tabernacle out, you have Living Plane, and you have Caracas. So the Living Plane turns all lands into 1/1s, and the idea is the Tabernacle is going to put a 1 upkeep cost on all of your opponent's lands. So they have to tap them or use mana rocks to pay for them, or they're destroyed. So it's a real lock, and the idea with Caracas is Tabernacle is legendary. And when you have the Living Plane out, it becomes a legendary creature. So you can actually use the Caracas to bounce the Tabernacle at your opponent's end step, so you don't have to pay the upkeep cost in your upkeep. So it's like a one-sided stasis. I think it's my favorite prison list in Old School. I think it's one of the best, and it plays very differently than any other prison list in Old School. So it's just a really, really fun. It's a really fun deck to play. Tabernacle is so expensive, unfortunately, and it's gotten even worse since I introduced the deck. I guess 18 months ago around. But it's a lot of fun. I really love it. I have a transformational sideboard, and I should say, like, I go through like an hour in depth of this on episode, I think 138 of All Things Considered with Brian Manalakis. So I'm not going to do it justice, but in short, with the sideboard, I love trying to get this combo to work game 1. Don't really want to try to have to play through Energy Flux game 2. And yes, I could go up to a 4th Disenchant, but I really want to play on my turf, not my opponent's. So I really like, I'll always, if I go transformation, I'm always going to take out one of the Caracas and put a Plains in. Or if there's Blood Moon, that helps too. And I'm going to put in 12 creatures that can't be bolted. And I like this transformational strategy a lot. They're all mana efficient. They're very quick. And if I somehow get to a game 3, I'm going to shuffle all 75 cards together, and I'm going to make my opponent guess, am I going to go the creature route or the combo route? And I think just my opponent not knowing which version I'm going to play really makes a big difference. And the colors are white, green, blue anyway, so I can play those 12 creatures quite easily. And there's a 3 casting cost Dib, a 4 casting cost Ernie, a 5 casting cost Sarah, so it just feels really solid when I'm trying to get creatures out. I don't have too many dead turns. I love the Parfait package. I think it's the best shell for the Tabernacle Living Plane Caracas combo. I love the main deck Dust to Dust because removing a Soul Ring. Oftentimes I don't care if you have a Jam Day Tome. I just want to remove Soul Ring and one other mana rock, so you can't pay the upkeep cost nearly as easily. And then I like, the last thing I'll say about this, and you can go into more depth on All Things Considered, I like having a backup win con, and that's Titania Song. So if I don't have my combo working to win, I have copy artifacts, I have ICs, and I have a lot of 2/2 artifacts, the Howling Mines and the Relic Barriers. I can often, while I'm trying to get my combo to work and lock my opponent out, which is the fun part of this deck, I can cast Titania Song and just win instantly with one swing. So I like decks where you have a combo where you do have a backup win con, and oftentimes that backup win con can just win you the game outright if you're missing a piece. So and if I don't have the Caracas to bounce the Tabernacle, I do have a little bit heavier on mana rocks. I have the full Moxen, plus I have 2 Felwar Stones, and copy artifacts could be used to copy more of my mana rocks, so a Soul Ring or a Felwar Stone. So my full combo out, I could have an asymmetry with more mana rocks to pay for my lands than my opponent does, hopefully. So that's kind of the idea to that, and love to hear what both of you have to say.
I think what I like about your combos, first off, it's great that you came up with this. I remember you emailed it to me a year ago, 2 years ago. I can't remember. I was like, what? And what I like is your combo involves 2 lands. And you know I'm a blue player, right? I cannot counter land. What are you doing to me, man?
Well, this deck wouldn't work.
Can't do it.
If Karakas produced red, this wouldn't work. It's just, it's really almost not 3-card combo, but 2.5, because Karakas is helping you disenchant, it's helping you swords, it's helping you dust to dust. So the difference between, on-color mana is really important in old school. I'm not saying anything that's new. So if that produced red or black, it just wouldn't work. It's the fact it produces white, which I need anyway, really, really helps with this list.
The list looks super solid, and it was actually super fun to play against it. And I know it was annoying, but it's so unusual and cool to see something happening in old school Magic, which is, the format is small because of such few additions we have, and it's so cool to see that. It was great. It was a great episode.
Well, when I started old school, I was told that Tabernacle and Chains of Mephistopheles are not playable cards in old school, and I was determined to try to make each of those decks work. And I figured out the Tabernacle, which I think this is a very playable deck. Chains, I think Anna has a list that I think is as close as you might be able to get, and I do play that in the next 25 episodes. You'll have to stay tuned to review that one. But I'm super happy to see a list in old school where Tabernacle is a real featured part of the deck strategy. What do you think of this, Dave?
Yeah, it's really sweet. I've been locked out by this one once or twice playing against you, and really was impressed when I was sitting across the table from it. I couldn't recommend ATC 138 more. I think I remember exactly where I was, like walking around my town or in my neighborhood, like listening to it, and when you were breaking this down, it had an impact on my life. So one of those old episodes that people should definitely dig up.
Well, that's I'm blushing hearing that. Yeah, you don't, with your mono green list, you don't want to see a deck with 3 Tabernacles. That's just bad news for you. Okay, so check that one out. This is my favorite list I'll play in any episode. I really love it, and I hope more people can try it. Okay, episode 47, I think.
Yes, here we are.
So you'll see patterns. Like, I really love Anna's deck building style. He loves my deck building style, so we definitely exchange deck lists. And this is one of his that I really, really loved. So I forgot what he called this, but we have 3 Royal Assassins, which I don't think has appeared in an episode yet. So we have the Icy Royal, which is really fun. We have 2 Meek Stones, which, if you're playing big creatures, we can icy them to tap them down if you don't tap them down first. So you can untap them. We have Kismet, so any big creatures just come into play taps. You can't use them. I'm going with Hippies, which are a 2 power, and I don't think we've had Azure Drakes yet up until this point. But instead of Serendip Efreets, they're 2/4 creatures. They can't be bolted. They can't be bottled, and they're not going to be affected by the Meek Stone. So they're just really cool. Other than that, you're going to see the restricted list, some white removal. We don't really have a need for swords in the main because we have other ways to deal with creatures with the Ices and with the Royals. So the swords I have are in the sideboard in case I need them. And then we have factories too to try to get in there and deal damage too. But this is a really cool list. I really, really love this. Mode in the sideboard in case your opponent's running a lot of weenie creatures, because that will go against kind of the strategy I have with the Meek Stone. So I could go that route instead. And yeah, I just really think that this is a really, really beautiful list. Anna, this is one of my favorites you made. I really like it. Royal Assassin was a card that I know I really feared as a kid. I think we all probably did. It was reprinted and revised, so everybody had this card. I think we all love playing creatures, and yeah, it was something that you had to deal with, or you just couldn't get in there and attack with your creatures and win. I do love having a single Sarah, because that does not need to tap, so that works really well with Meekstone. So just as a one of, I think it's really great. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, and Dave when he gets back.
Dave's gone. Dave is what I like is just to see Royal Assassin. It's just great because it's exactly what you say, Charles. It's one of the cards I remember very well from my earliest days in Magic, and one of the reasons I started playing Prodigal Sorcerer, because it could kill the annoying Royal Assassin. And yeah, it's cool as Kismet, Meekstone, very classic combo as well. Maybe I would play Winter Orb main, one or two, I don't know. But yeah, very cool list.
Because of Kismet, and also the synergy between Royal Assassin and the Icy is super cool. And to be fair, back in the days when I remember right, Royal Assassin was a card which was hard to come by. Because it was a rare, it was super good, everyone wants it, because it was so fearful, you know, like, and and to see it in a list like that, it's quite amazing. Also, it is kind of unusual for a black card, because normally black cards are not destroying other black cards. Like Terror, it's only destroying everything other colored, and colorless is also safe, but the Royal Assassin is just destroying everything which is tapped. He don't care.
It's a really cool card, and it had to appear in a deck, and it really fits with the Icy. It really fits with the Meekstone, Kismet, everything coming in tapped. And then the creature choices are really great with Azure Drake, the Hippies, and then the single Sarah, which doesn't need to tap. So it's really great. Dave, what do you think of this list?
Yeah, I mean, you would have been the envy of every kid on the playground with this deck back in '95. I mean, my God, Royal Assassin was such a chase card, as Mitchie mentions. I love it. I think Kismet is probably underplayed overall in old school. We've seen it a couple times today. The card is pretty sneaky, and I've been thinking about it myself a bit, and I hope we see more of it in the year ahead. It's a really cool effect.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, so with that, I think we'll go to episode 48.
Yeah, and here we are.
Okay, so I think Dave mentioned when we were looking at Project M that might just be a deck that Magnus can play. I'm not sure anybody else can play. You would need tons of experience. Well, this is a Danny Friedman list. The idea is you're just going to win with Tormod's Crypt. So that's the idea. And it is not easy to play this deck well. I did not play this deck well in the episode. I will just say. This might be a deck that only Danny can play in Danny's hands. But I still want to try to... I mean, Tormod's Crypt, it sounds strange to be a win con, but I want to try to get every win con on in an episode. So I failed this time to get it to work, but... that's basically the idea to that. We're going to play Howling Mines. We're going to draw cards. I'm going to get in. I'm going to put more of your lands in your graveyard. I have swords to try to remove creatures. Then I'm going to use a Tormod's Crypt, remove your entire graveyard. I'm going to Time Twister. You're going to have half your deck missing. And we're going to keep doing this until you don't have a deck to win anymore. So that's kind of living the dream. I wasn't able to do it, I'll admit, in the episode, but I just think it's a really cool card.
I need to ask it. I mean, I remember Danny as a cool guy, super nice, super sweet. I love to drink beer with him at NoobCon. Why is he always building such mean decks? I mean, you have Twiddlewald, you have that. I mean, come on, he's locking you down with Tormod's Crypt and Feldon's Cane.
This is an unanswerable question. Danny is like the best guy in old school, but his decks will torture you. There's Twiddlewald or this, like, he doesn't go easy on you. But this one's really, I think, a really fun way to try to build around getting all your lands and then Tormod's Crypting and then Time Twistering and then letting you play with 75% of your deck left, and then the next time only half of your deck, and then 25%. It's a real slow way to try to get a win, but it's a lot of fun to see it if it could work. What do you, Thomas, Dave? What do you two think?
No comment.
Well, no, I was waiting on maybe Dave wanted to go first. I think what makes this deck cool is that it's original. But it is like when it goes off, and you basically lose, right? And there's not a lot of interaction.
Yeah.
So that's always something that I don't like about these decks, but what I do like about it is that it's original. So you're like, wow, something's happening that I've never seen before. So winning like this, like with a Torment Script, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I think Danny might just be a sadist at heart. He has a dark soul. I can't really explain it. This is not. I don't know if I could have any constructive things to say on this one, other than I guess it's theoretically possible to win with Torment Script. But my God, if it involves jumping through all these hoops and having a weird, long, drawn-out game involving like multiple time twisters and canes and stuff like that, I'm probably not interested. But it certainly is unique, and it's definitely a function of the evil mind from which it sprang. So
okay, Amisha, anything else, or should we go on to episode 49?
I would say we go on to 49. And
all right, let's do it.
Here we are.
Okay, so this is the second list in these 25 episodes that I drew from one of Manalakis' lists. I think this list is interesting because you typically see 4 Vices and 4 Ankhs in a red deck is the first thing you notice, and in this case, it's in a mono blue deck. This list was a lot of fun to play. I really liked it. The Dibs, the Flying Men. You have the what is the creature? I can't remember what it's called. What's the other creature called?
Sage?
Falcon.
Zephyr Falcon?
Zephyr Falcon.
Yeah.
So you have a 1 casting cost, a 2 casting cost, a 3 casting cost to have a little bit of ramp there. I just think it's a lot of fun. Every card is great. The stasis is when it works is really good because you have tons of blue islands to play, and you do have your Zephyr Falcon as well. What do you guys think of this list?
Yeah, I was just going to point out the Falcon stasis interaction, which is tremendous. It's not an ATOG deck, but it has the blue ATOG, which is Sage of Latinam. Similar concept here. 2 mana, 1/2 creature from Antiquities that eats artifacts. I think this is great. It's a little bit too bad that it's predicated on having all the mana rocks. Like I've been looking around for budget-ish mono blue decks in old school. I think that's a pretty hard thing to solve for, to be honest. This suggests a potential route, but it's really like you really want to have your Time Twister and your Moxes and stuff for more favorable interactions with the Sage and the Ankhs and stuff like that. So that's a bit of a bummer. I love Hercules. Out of the board here does exactly what you want. Everything it works with the rest of the plan. One thing I'm really missing with the 7/1/1 flyers is a sneaky Pendelhaven. I think that belongs just to give your Falcons and your Flying Men a little bit more of a boost there.
I like that idea.
Yeah, Pendelhaven would be great. Toss.
Yeah, I like the one of Stasis.
Yeah.
It's very nice. You'd have this option, and when the time is right, bam, that's really good.
Well, your opponent won't be expecting that. So if your opponent taps out to do something big, you can get them for a long time and win the game with that one of Stasis. So it could be really great. Anything else on this list?
A super nice synergy with the Black Vice, because as long as the boomerangs, because as long as the Stasis is working, he is he's drawing cards and take constantly damage out of the Black Vice, and he probably can't play the lands because of Ankh of Mishra, which is also kind of great. Yeah. Shall we move on to deck list number 50?
All right, the last list of the episode.
I think this is a spiky one.
I wouldn't say it's too spiky, but
I wouldn't say that at all.
So some of you may notice just looking at this list, but in episode 50, Meech and I wanted to do something special, and we decided to play a rematch of the 1994 World Championship Finals. And this is Zach Dolan's winning list, believe it or not. The World Championship included, up until through Legends. So the Dark, although it was released 11 days earlier, was not included in the legal card pool for the World Championship. But it's super special to see what the players were thinking, what they were worried about, what's included, what's not included. Chaos Orb in the sideboard, right? I mean, it looks strange. We don't see Blue Blast. I mean, it's just so interesting to see like you have Lay Druid, but you don't have Candelabra. Siren's Call. I mean, it's just such an interesting list of there's so many unique sideboard cards like Sleight of Mind and Magical Hack. Magical Hack, you can change Swamp Walk to Island Walk or Basic Mountain to Basic Forest. Like, what was Zach concerned about? But you're putting yourself in the mind of players who weren't thinking about this game for 25 or 30 years, like many of us have been. Card availability was a major issue. A lot of players just didn't have every card. So, and also it's interesting to see 4 Mana Drains were, I believe, legal. There's 1 in this list. You could have 4 Strip Mines. There's 2. Although we're playing a Swedish series, when it comes to these kind of historical decks, we don't want to put any fingerprints on them. Whatever the players did, we were going to go exactly like that. What is Dave saying? I said something wrong.
Oh no, just that you can't play 2 Strip Mines in Swedish. But you know.
Right. So we can't do that. But like we could have taken 1 out and put a city in Brasson. But as soon as we start making changes, it's not the match anymore. So
yeah, it's cooler to play a historical match for sure.
And by the way, these decks are so strangely built. I'll be generous with that. It does not make any difference, right? Like this has no Mistress Factories, right? It's just really interesting to see what's included and what's not included in this.
Since
what do you guys think of the list?
Just to say one thing about those lists first. Since you think this looks strange, wait till we go to my next 25 lists and wait for the Arabian aggro lists. They are completely.
I'll say your Arabian list is much stronger than this. So
yeah.
We'll remember this list when we do Meech's episode 50. But basically, I don't know how this list won best 3 out of 5, except if Zach just drew library like almost all 3 times. But unless you have library, this is just a weaker list. Yeah. So the fact that this list won is very lucky for Zach, because the other list Meech is playing, although you'll see there are definitely some odd things there that you're saying that like nobody would build a deck like that today. It looks more like a real Swedish list than this does. But we'll do that next episode.
Yeah, sorry.
Dave, Thomas, what do you think about the 94 winning deck list?
I mean, first thing is we were just tabbing over to the site, and I was looking at it for a second. I'm like, wait a second, is this Zach Dolan's list? And then I saw the Siren's Call, and I knew I was in the right place. And that's sort of the hallmark of this deck is the main deck Siren's Call, right? Along with everything else. I don't know. Maybe he stuck a turn 1 Sarah Angel off his Lotus or something. I mean, it has those kinds of lines to it. Very powerful cards, obviously. I just think it's almost above any kind of constructive criticism, because the format as it was then, and their way of approaching it is completely like inaccessible to us playing contemporary old school. It's just not the same thing. Like you said, Charles, like card availability had a lot to do with it, and just like the metagame of the day, which is nowhere near the very, very streamlined, hyper. I mean, I wouldn't say old school's hyper competitive, but like we know what the best decks are. Everyone's sharpening, the same whatever 8 to 10 like tier 1-ish, tier 2-ish archetypes that we have available to us. And this was still the Wild West. Nobody had any idea what they were doing, frankly. And things were changing all the time. You had different like local or regional rule sets. Different game stores had different rules, right? It was all over the map. And that's how you end up with, I guess, like Floral Spasm in your sideboard. I mean, it's a masterpiece. It's a thing of beauty. We'll never be able to go back to those days, but it's cool that you guys jammed this match just to mark time and as a fun thing to do to celebrate the 50th episode.
What do you think, Thomas?
Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to say, like, Presence of the Master is just great to see that card, and I wonder if maybe it could be played a little bit more in regular old school, at least in some of the sideboards. What do you think?
To deal with the Abyss, probably. For white,
Yeah,
would
for
try to
example.
work.
Or if you're playing against an Underworld Dreams list, to try to sneak it out first,
Yeah.
and then
The awkward thing is that white already has disenchant, right?
Yeah.
If it were green, and I could put that in a green weenie type of list just to put it out there instead of getting abyssed, instead of waiting for the abyss to come down and then casting Tranquility or something slow. It only costs 1, right? Or does it cost more than that?
No, it's 1 and 3, I believe.
Oh, never
Pretty
mind.
expensive.
No, card is
No,
garbage.
it's four mana, I guess.
Forget I said anything.
No, man, it's a beautiful card. Come on, I got a mug with Presence of the Master. Somebody send it to me. I'll show you.
yeah.
The art is wonderful. It belongs on a mug. It just doesn't belong like on the table.
I mean, just the sideboard, like in the Eye of Chaos, Presence of the Master, Magical Hack. I mean, just really unique. Diamond Valley in the sideboard, you have Old Man in the main, but Diamond Valley in the sideboard, when are you bringing in this? It's just really interesting, right? Not Ivory Tower. I'll say one more thing. Not only was there a card availability issue, but they didn't release list of all the cards and sets. I don't know up until this point whether everybody even knew what was in the core set to the limits. Like what was printed in Antiquities. Like, did Zach Dolan not have a Candelabra instead of a Lidra, or did he not know that card existed?
Did he not have like a Rubinia Soul Singer, for example, which would fit right into your band? Like,
or did he not even know that card existed, and he still may be surprised playing? So we don't really know exactly how things were worked, but card availability was definitely an issue. You couldn't just go on eBay or TCG and buy what you wanted. So this was a really cool list. Anybody else have another comment on the winning list?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, so we've come to the end of another 25 lists. Really fun to go through it. Hope everyone can see that all of the lists are different. There are no repeats. We try to get a lot of spicy lists in, although we do want to get in some like archetypes, whether it's even ATOG. We had one list that had that. We have to at least get that out of the way. Really fun. We hopefully show a lot of different cards that aren't, that haven't appeared before. Meech's lists are great too, so I hope you're going to join us for part 2, where we're going to go through Meech's decks from episode 26 to 50, again with Thomas and Dave helping us. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was a good review. Thank you both so much. This was a very long episode, but we really appreciate it. And we'll see you all for part 2 soon, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.